Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Let's start with a big, no duh moment here. Just absolutely no. Remember, we used to say that a lot. What was that in the 90s? No duh. Where you just slap your forehead so hard you leave a handprint. Here's the headline from today. I'm reading this from our news partner, WFAA.com. All Texas truckers must know English. Governor Abbott orders DPS to enforce after a WFAA report. So according to WFAA, and I saw this on Breitbart and a few other places, so this looks legit. Governor Abbott has ordered the Texas DPS to actually enforce the law that's already on the books requiring English proficiency. Now, isn't this just like for truckers, commercial drivers? Just slap yourself in the forehead. Duh. We should be enforcing all laws at all times. Period, point blank, end of story. We have a thing called the rule of law, to where if you're not enforcing the laws, that's bad. That's like a violation of the ethical code. If it's so important it needs to be a law, then damn it, enforce it. If it's not so important that it doesn't need to be a law or doesn't need to be enforced, then take it off the books. But, for the people who say, oh, it's a threat to democracy. Well, if the people can go put representatives in positions of power that pass laws, the representatives, the legislative bodies that are the ones tasked with making the rules, actually make the rule and it gets passed and it goes into the law. But another arm of the government just says, nah, we're not going to enforce that. Well, no, you don't write the laws. You don't get to choose whether or not it gets enforced. If you don't want that law to be enforced, you need to go back to the legislative part of government and say you need to repeal this law or change the law. But that's not what they do. No concern about the threat to the democracy crowd over lack of enforcement of laws they don't like. Because if you can pick and choose, if men can pick and choose which laws they do and don't enforce, then you don't have the rule of law anymore. You have the rule of man. You have tyranny. But this was something that just came out today. Greg Abbott told the DPS, hey, you know that the Donald Trump executive order requiring the enforcement of the English proficiency rule? Yeah, we're actually going to enforce that. Okay, I mean, that's great, but I mean, is that like headline stuff? It is, but it's sad that it is. It's sad that we are in 2025 and we have to celebrate. Oh, good. The government's actually going to enforce the laws that we sent up there and forced our representatives to pass. We shouldn't be applauding them. We should be expecting this. This was the most normal thing in the world. Of course you're going to enforce the laws. Of course, because now we've had our elected representatives go past the law. And now we've had the president, which we just elected, go say, hey, you remember that law that you guys are ignoring it? Stop ignoring it. And then this other guy that is elected saying, yes, the law that's been passed that was asked to be enforced by the president, we're now going to enforce it too. Here's the crazy part. There's some states that are putting their foot down and not going to enforce this. And it's just the dumbest idea. It's not ethical. It's not good. And it fits this whole other, wider scope of multiculturalism. They say multiculturalism like it's a good thing. Well, look, multiculturalism is a good thing when it's dinner time and you want to pick out where you're going to go eat and you have a lot of choices. You go get Thai food, you go get Indian food, you go get Mexican food, you can go get steaks or burgers or sushi or whatever. That kind of multiculturalism is good. But the kind of multiculturalism where you're driving a 600,000 pound vehicle at 70 miles an hour and you can't read the signs, that's bad. Not all multiculturalism is good. In fact, multiculturalism is not a good policy economically. It's not good for, minimizing conflict between neighbors and citizens of the country. There's communication barriers. You have the balkanization of neighborhoods. We stop communicating with each other. It does not help us get along. It is not good economic policy. It is not the way you get ahead as a nation. Is by what? Diminishing your own native culture? Yeah, look, we have this whole systems of We all agreed to use the same language. We put all our signs up and all the rules. And if you're going to look up something on your phone, and then some guys aren't going to comply with that. You really think that's good? You really think that's good for the country? See, the only way you think that's good is if you don't like this country. If you can make it less American, if you hate America, if you think America is a bastion of hatred, bigotry, sexism against women, transphobia, and hating of immigrants, and literally Hitler, the multiculturalism is good because it dilutes a culture you think is bad. But if you love America, multiculturalism not the way to go. Did you ever notice in the Bible, like how in the Old Testament, Old Testament is like 3/4 of the Bible. And when you get to past a certain point, it's just the same story that repeats. It's like, well, the Jewish people turned away from God, forgot their religion, started accepting other gods and letting foreigners in, and they were intermarrying with foreigners, and it diluted their own culture, and eventually their society collapsed until they had a spiritual rebirth. They turned back to God. They shed the multiculturalism, and they got back to the traditions and the mores that built up their country in the first place. Now, multiculturalism, I'm pretty indifferent on it in a vacuum. But when you're America, when you're the number one country, the hyperpower of the world, most successful, highest standard of living, richest country, most accomplished country, whether it's the space program or the Olympics or the Nobel Prize, why would you want to be accepting other people's mores and traditions that haven't been as successful? Is that what you would tell the Philadelphia Eagles, who just won the Super Bowl last night or last year? They're going to be playing against the Cowboys tonight. I'm really excited about that. Does anybody say, hey, guys, you need to stop being so much like the Eagles and start being like the other teams? You need to be more like the Texans and the Browns and the Jaguars, and they start acting like the doormats? Is that really good? If you're number one to adopt the policies and the practices of your failed neighbors? And just for the nail in the coffin on this multiculturalism talk here, how'd that work out for the Iroquois, the Mohawks, the Delaware Indians, when massive amounts of people came here and didn't assimilate, didn't learn their language, continued with their old customs? What happened? They went away. Well, we cannot sustain unfettered immigration to America with no assimilation and be America very long. There's a lot of us, but there's not that many of us. So, yeah, I think this is the just most brain dead, common sense policy. And I'm glad Governor Abbott's on board. I'm glad he's doing this. I'm glad they're finally enforcing this law. My question was, why weren't we doing this last year or the entire time you were governor? This is the bare minimum of where you should start. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Governor Abbott's going to require truckers to know English. We're going to see what the opposition to this could possibly be coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Our top story of the day, Governor Abbott has directed the Texas Department of Public Safety to actually enforce the law that was already on the books, that was asked to be enforced by President Trump in a recent executive order. And it's just crazy how much we have to go through to actually enforce a law that's so common sense. I think you're brain damaged if you're against this. Yes, yeah, all truckers, all commercial truckers should be required to speak English. There's nothing bigoted about that. In fact, for a great example, the aviation world, everyone has to know English. All pilots, commercial pilots who are going to be flying into commercial airports, the air traffic control towers, the pilots, they all have to learn English. Why? If we're all going to be sharing this travel system together, it is imperative for the safety of the people participating in this system and the people around it to be able to talk to each other. That is not a crazy controversial stance, nor should it be. The crazy controversial stance is the fact that up until today, the standard operating procedure in Texas was, hey, this obvious common sense thing that's already a law on the books, we're just going to ignore it. So let's talk about the incentives here. Who doesn't want this enforced, and why wouldn't they want it enforced? Now, I know WBAP is a pretty political animal, pretty political station. We talk about politics all the time, and that's a pretty easy, one of the pretty easy angles to see. Some people like illegal immigration because they think that more voters are in the future, and they're going to vote for them. If we can just get them in here and get them legalized and get them a voter ID card or get them to vote, we're set. Even if we can't get them amnestied, we can get them part of the process, and maybe the little fake ID that they've made, we can sort of co-opt that, or we can at least get them to show up at rallies, or we can at least get them to cause chaos and be asking for some sort of government expansion for a safety, anti-chaos situation. But get off the politics for a second, because all that's true, and that's some people's incentive. But for the big movers and shakers, the ones that use trucking companies, if you're a big company like a Walmart, or if you're a Target, or you're a McDonald's, or you're a Dick's Sporting Goods, you use trucks all day. That's one of your big costs. Wouldn't you like for your trucking costs to go down? How can you do that? Well, you can import a bunch of people, and some of them are legal. Some of them are here under, just the most, what's called rubber stamp of immigration processes. You get an employer-sponsored visa. And it's like, oh, yeah, we have a shortage of truckers around here. We couldn't find anybody else, so we got to import them. Yeah, no. You don't want to pay the American wages anymore. You want to pay the wage of what a third worlder will accept, which is basically you could pay them in sand and they would still take the job. So for all the people out there who are concerned about rich people getting away with it and they're just exploiting poor people, and yes, this is how they do it. This is rich people exploiting poor people. This is rich people grinding middle-class Americans underfoot back into poverty because they've taken away their livelihood, their line of work. It used to pay well. It used to pay better than it does now to be a trucker. There were a lot of jobs, more than there are now, and they paid better. And where I grew up out in East Texas, being a trucker is not something that's looked down on. Being a trucker, like, okay, well, your family's going to be all right. You don't get to see your dad very much, but at least you're going to be middle class. These truckers that have been priced out of the market, have you seen these stories? Flip around on X. Flip around on your social media. Tell me if you can find any truckers that are telling the story about how they lost their job. They're like, I just can't do it for that low of money anymore. My costs have gone up, but my pay hasn't. They can't compete with people who are willing to live just a grinding poverty standard of living. And so if we can get some of those guys out, then a livelihood, a way of life will return for Texans. And you'll see thousands of them being lifted out of poverty back into the middle class. And all we have to do is enforce a law that was on the books this entire time. This doesn't seem like a big deal to you because you're not a trucker. But for these people, What a huge injustice they have faced their entire life. We have all set aside and allowed this law to not be enforced without ever fussing about it so they can import immigrants to take our neighbor's job, and we just let it happen. They have been failed. If you're a trucker, what are you supposed to do? You and all your friends get together, you elect representatives that pass the law that would save your job and protect it from illegal, unethical foreign competition, and you got it passed. And then no one enforced it. Your country just left you to fend for yourself. So, yeah, all truckers should have to learn English. All truckers should be able to demonstrate proficiency in English. And if you can't, well, that's too bad. You're going to have to start paying Americans more. You're going to have to kick out all these illegals or these people who are just barely have some sort of the thinnest veil of legal status. And I'm thinking about the guy in Austin who earlier, what was that, this year, just ran up the back of a whole bunch of cars, killed 5 people. There was another one outside of Terrell, did the same thing. There was another big crash. 17 people went to the hospital just last weekend on I-20 outside of Lindell. We had the guy that was the seat guy that decided he was just going to do a U-turn, and that was in Florida, if I remember correctly. Killed a family of 3. So there's safety concerns, there's economic concerns, there's ethical concerns, and they all point to just enforcing the law. And it just a common sense, no, duh, law. And for all the people who talk about, hey, we need to raise wages for the middle class, or we need to raise the minimum wage. Poor people aren't getting paid enough. We need to find a way to make incomes go up. This would make incomes go up. This would be a benefit to the least among us, the lowest rungs of society, lower rungs of society. This is how you actually raise wages. Without changing the minimum wage or passing a new law, just enforcing the laws you already got on the books. It'll help Americans to the detriment of foreigners, and I'm totally okay with that. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, country music legend John Rich is going to tell you about how his Redneck Riviera brand is expanding. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. My next guest, huge name. I just had to record it earlier today, so this is going to be a replay. But it's John Rich from Big and Rich. Country fans know this. If you're not a country fan, you still probably at least know their biggest song because, I mean, it gets played everywhere. Wedding receptions, stadiums, commercials. You probably heard this, right? So I actually got to see them live one time. I saw Big and Rich. It happened to be in Vegas, Fremont Street. They were doing a show on an outdoor stage. And they did this cool thing where, you know, it's kind of an upbeat, positive sort of band anyway. But I remember John Rich said, hey, just stop what you're doing for a second. We're not going to make any noise, but I want you to look to your left and I want you to look to your right. And I want you to introduce yourself to the people next to you. And there, boom, you got two new friends. And so everyone actually did it. Everyone's like, hey, my name is James. Is your name Carol? Okay. Hey, my name's James. What's your name? Mitch? All right, cool. I guess we're friends now. All right. And, you know, you don't get a whole lot of like positive, uplifting stuff like that. That's also kind of young and cool and hip. You know, that might be something you see at a Frank Sinatra tribute band or something. But I thought, you know, what a good guy, what a positive guy. He's not up there trying to be sexy or cool or bad. He's just being a nice guy. So with that, I'll let you hear my interview with John Rich. Joining me now, John Rich. If that sounds familiar, or you're a country fan, you recognize Big and Rich. If you're not a country fan, this is a guy you've seen on Fox News and you've heard his songs. You know, John, you're Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy. I can't go to a stadium now without hearing it. You have one of those songs that's just embedded in the culture from here on out. You know, there's just going to be songs you hear. You're going to hear Crazy Train. You're going to hear Centerfield. You're going to hear you, actually. But you're not coming on to talk about music today. You're coming on to talk about something else I'm a fan of, Redneck Riviera whiskey.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's crazy to see Big and Rich music has become part of culture like that. I mean, college game day football is coming to your city for the past like almost 20 years, which is hard to believe. But yeah, I've got a whiskey, Redneck Riviera American blended whiskey. I put it out in 2018 and it is blowing up in Texas. We're up 100% year over year in Texas. I'm a Texan. I'm from Amarillo originally. That's where I grew up. And, you know, I set out to see if I could come with an American version of Crown Royal, which is what I always drank. That's Canadian blended. I said, well, man, America needs its own blend. We need our stuff. And so I use American glass, American corks, labels, everything in that product is 100% made in our country. And then we give back to the Folds of Honor, which is a organization that puts kids through college who lost a parent in combat or who has a disabled parent serving our country. We've sent them now $2 million off of sales of this whiskey. So it has really grown at a rapid pace.
Well, when you first came out with it, I think you did an interview on, it might have been Fox News, or it might have been one of my other radio friends. But I'm like, hey, I'm a fan. Sounds like a good cause. I'm a big fan of whiskey as it is. So when I saw it in the store, I grabbed it. And two things. Number one, it was cheaper than I thought. I thought, well, you know, it's like a celebrity brand and It's for charity, so they're going to kind of gouge you, but just eat it because it's for a good cause. No, you kept the price point just reasonable along with everyone else. And number two, I actually went back and got some more. Now, I'm not going to say it's like my number one in the rotation, but it's in the rotation, so it's actually great whiskey, reasonable price. Thank you for that.
Oh yeah, I kept it priced where regular blue collar people could afford it, because you know a lot of the whiskey out there is 50, 60, 80 bucks a bottle, and you know I grew up in the Panhandle. I have a high school diploma, nothing fancy in my pedigree. I mean that's my people, so I wanted to come with something really smooth, but that you could actually still afford, and we would give back to our veterans, and we managed to do all those things. Specs, Total Wine, Siegel's, Goody, all those chains are now carrying Redneck Riviera whiskey. So I'm really excited to see it doing so well in my home state.
Where is it distilled?
So we blend it right here in Tennessee, just south of Nashville. We blend it here, bottle it here, ship it from here. So it's all generating out of Tennessee and goes all over the country. We're in 11,000 stores now across the United States and growing rapidly. So Texas is a standout this year. It has really started to catch on. A lot of Crown Royal drinkers are going, you know what? That's a good point. That's Canadian blended. I want to wonder what American blended tastes like. And when they do a comparison, it's not even close. Mine is so much smoother and better and more affordable. So they move over to Redneck Riviera. So I'm pretty excited, man. It's great to see Texas embracing it.
Well, the Redneck Riviera brand is something that seems to be expanding. You now have the Redneck Riviera bar that's in Nashville on the Strip there. How far are you
Yep.
going to take this brand? What else you got coming up for us, John?
Well, people like it. It's a very patriotic brand. It's red, white, and blue. It's America first. The product is 100% made in America. When you walk in a liquor store, most all the glass you're going to see is made in China, India, Mexico, because it's a lot cheaper. American glass is expensive, but I don't care. I want it to be 100% made in our country. So it is an American whiskey from top to bottom. And so if people keep demanding it, I'm going to keep expanding it. I think we do need places like that. When you see a lot of brands that disappoint you, from Cracker Barrel to Bud Light, there are brands out there like mine who will not disappoint you. They do hold the line. They are authentic, and they do support our country and Americans and our military. That's what Redneck Riviera is all about.
All right, you'll hear the second half of my interview with John Rich from Big and Rich coming up on the James Show. The website for the Redneck Riviera that we're talking about is quite obvious, redneckriviera.com. That's where you can find the whiskey, the apparel, the boots, and a little bit more about the good cause, the Folds of Honor. But the rest of John Rich coming up next on the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Did you hear our big programming announcement from this morning? I have a new lead-in show, Mark Lee, Van Camp, and Robbins. And they are going to be taking over the 11 to 2 slot. So if you're familiar with them, you probably already like them. If not, give them a shot. You probably will like them. But that was the big thing that I was teasing yesterday. Remember, we have a big programming announcement tomorrow at 11:05. Well, that's the big programming announcement. So any questions about that, email Bruce. No, I'm just kidding. You can ask me. I'll be happy to answer them. We continue with the second half of my interview with John Rich from Big and Rich.
It's all about.
So what other Redneck Riviera brands you got going out there? You've got the Bar and Grill. You've got the whiskey. I've seen you wearing Redneck Riviera T-shirts, but is there a clothing line or is that just advertising?
Oh, yeah.
There is.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with that. So redneckriviera.com is where you want to go. There's apparel. I actually have a boot line that's patriotic boots. I wear mine every day. I'm a bit of boot guy since I was a kid in Amarillo. So yeah, there's boots, T-shirts, there's whiskey. There's live music venues. It's becoming quite a thing, man. Definitely getting a lot bigger than I thought it would, but that's a good thing.
Oh man, those boots look sharp. Love that. It's very Texas themed boots you got there.
Absolutely, 100%. I love wearing them. I rep them all the time. And again, you probably have veterans and active duty listening to us right now, and this brand is for them. I mean, this brand, as a high school graduate that now has a brand like Redneck Riviera nationwide, the only reason that's even possible is because we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as dictated in the Declaration of Independence. And our military are the ones that have kept those inalienable rights alive for us to still enjoy and to still exercise. So I look at any success I have as directly related to the service of those men and women.
Well, are you expanding into any more liquor categories? Because, whiskey just feels very American, more so than a vodka or a tequila or even like a gin. Are you just going to stick with whiskey?
I think I'm just going to stick with whiskey for now, man. I mean, down the road, I don't know. We might do something else, but right now, Redneck Riviera whiskey, like I said, in the state of Texas, we're up over 100% year over year. Specs, Total Wine, Seagulls, Goody. They've all come on board. They've all gotten behind the brand. They love what it stands for. They love that price point. They love that it's American made. And it's just selling like crazy in Texas right now. I have to thank those stores for coming on board. It's tough, man, when you start butting heads with Jack Daniels and Jim Beam and Crown Royal. I mean, those are multi-billion-dollar brands. And Redneck Riviera, it's a solo-owned, independent brand. And when those stores bring us in and people go in and like yourself and buy it, man, that's what puts us in the game.
Did you have the big planogram wars? I know in the retail space they have to fight over who gets put where on the shelf, and a lot of that can be a very contentious fight. The old planogram.
That tells me you know a little bit about it. 100%. Trying to not be on the bottom shelf in the back corner of the store. I mean, that's where the big boys will shove you to. They're like, don't put that Redneck Riviera up there. Put this Jack Daniels up there. And yeah, they'll just buy their way in. But that being said, people have searched out the brand and they go, I want to check this out and see if it's any good. And yeah, I love Folds of Honor. Let's see if it's any count. And then they try it and go, wow, this is surprisingly smooth. This is surprisingly good. Like you said, it's in your rotation. This is not a $100 bottle of whiskey. This is under $25. But it is like a go-to for a lot of people now.
All right. Well, I'm checking out the website, redneckriviera.com, and I am new to all this apparel game. I didn't know this existed until you said it. And guys, you need to come check this out, redneckriviera.com. I'm already a fan of the whiskey. The boots are awesome, but I didn't know you had all these cool shirts.
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah. We have fun with those logos. It's like I said, it's patriotic. It's funny. There's a lot of humor in what we do. But then there's that serious edge, too, of we love our vets, we love our country, and we mean it. And so my T-shirts are made in the USA. That's also something you don't find very often. So, listen, we put our money where our mouth is, man. We want to give people something they can be proud of.
Well, these shirts and boots are definitely something that the WBAP audience would snatch up. Just Fine, John Rich, take all my money here. Especially, I think I'm going to get this "Don't Tread on Me" shirt. But John Rich, you're doing all this for Folds of Honor. Just give a quick 30-second rundown on why that's so important.
Folds of Honor was founded by a guy who's actually still an active duty Air Force pilot named Dan Rooney. And the money that gets raised and that goes to Folds of Honor goes to college scholarships for kids or spouses who have a family member who was either killed in action or severely disabled in action serving our country. So $2 million now sent from Redneck Riviera Brands to the Folds of Honor since 2018. So there's people going to college right now subsidized on sales of this whiskey. And that is something I'm really, really proud of. Specs, Total Wine, Seagulls, Goody Goody. Every time you go in there, you're helping us write more checks to Folds of Honor.
John Rich, good whiskey, even better cause. Thank you very much for your time on the James Show.
Yeah, man. God bless Texas.
All right, so that was John Rich from Big and Rich. Again, redneckriviera.com. And I wasn't just fluffing him a little bit there. I actually have had his whiskey probably 5 or 6 times. I've bought a bottle of that Redneck Riviera whiskey. It's fantastic. It mixes well. It doesn't try to do anything other than be whiskey. You ever get those whiskeys? It's like, well, this one's got a flavor of orange peel and dirt. It's like, well, can I just have like regular whiskey? So remember, Redneck Riviera, whenever you're in the store going through, I know you're not going to like write it down and make it a priority, but just next time you're casually going through the liquor store aisle, you see that label, you'd be like, oh, yeah. I heard about that on the James Show. That's from John Rich. That's for a good cause. And then you can do a good thing with the whiskey you were probably going to drink anyway, right? All right, now coming up next on the James Show, my next story is going to be a lot like my first story in the fact that it makes you just want to slap your forehead. Like you open hand, slap your forehead, just slap it, and it makes that popping sound. Because this is such a no-duh moment. If you're just joining us, the first story of the day was Governor Abbott announced that he's directed the DPS to actually enforce the law that's been on the books requiring commercial truck drivers to be proficient in English. Now, that's been the law, I think, your entire life, but Donald Trump had to sign an executive order, issued one earlier this year, I think just a couple weeks ago, requiring that law be enforced. And so now you had the governor saying, okay, well, we're going to actually enforce the law. You mean the law's been on the books? Now that the president said you need to enforce it, now you're going to, man, just slap your forehead with your hand. The next one, just as baffling, because it not only is it right, it's so obviously right. It's right without even having to do any proofs. It's self-evident, to quote our founding fathers, that this is right. And the story is going to come out of Chicago this time. And the issue in Chicago is they are stuck between, well, do we take this model that just got used in D.C. where they send in the National Guard and crime gets subdued substantially and murders go away and lives are saved and people are safe and happy? Or do we let more of our citizens suffer and continue to let the streets flow with blood in order to prevent Trump from getting a win? Now, in order to justify that, the Democrat mayor of Chicago has had to blame his city's gun violence on you. Gun people from red states are why the gun control in Chicago is not working. It's why it's so murderous. You'll hear it. You'll hear the audio next from him on the James Show. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. And I'm your smart mouth host, James Parker. Oh my goodness, you're going to hear just a lot of sarcasm and smarm and sprinkled in with a little dusting of disgust here over the next two segments, because the Chicago mayor is blaming his city's violence on guns from red states. He's got to come up with some reason why he doesn't want Trump to expand this whole model that just worked in D.C., where you bring in the National Guard and you quell some crime. And some of this is the same arguments they used in D.C., you know, like, well, it's not really that bad, or crime's actually down 30%, or we're at like a 30-year low. Yeah, your streets are flowing with blood. You have a crime problem, okay? More than half of the counties in America every year, more than half of them have zero murders every year. Y'all had like, what, 570 last year? And it's not even the whole thing in Chicago, even when they say, well, yeah, but on a per capita basis, there's 3 million people that live here, so it's going to seem like a whole lot. Yeah, but this isn't happening like in an even smattering over the whole city and all the neighborhoods. This is primarily concentrated in about 4 or 5 just god-awful, you remember the Emilio Estevez movie Judgment Night? You don't know that one, do you, Garrett? Other Garrett 2 or Garrett 3. It's probably too young to see Judgment Night. But when I was a kid growing up in Bug Tussle, I saw that like a documentary. I was like, wow, this is what the horrible neighborhoods in Chicago look like? It's dangerous to just be there at night. Some guy would show up, start asking you questions. If he doesn't like your answers, pulls out a gun and just lets you have it. I mean, the least believable part about that is the top dog and the scariest part of Chicago's Dennis Leary, sure. But apparently that's not too far off the truth. When you go look at a heat map of murders and violent crime in Chicago. And some places have none, and some places are in the red. So what we really have is the National Guard's going to go into just a handful of places. You don't need to blanket it out across all of it. You don't need the National Guard in Lincoln Park, not the band, but the neighborhood. You need it where all the people are getting killed. But if you're the Chicago mayor, if you're the Democrat mayor of any of these big cities, there's a very dangerous precipice that you're looking over right now. Because if this works, if Trump proves you can stop crime just by cracking down with additional manpower and law enforcement patrols, then how much of their whole narrative is exposed as a fraud? Because, right now the narrative, well, it's about the guns. No, it's not about the guns. It's about the lack of law enforcement. It's that you don't want to enforce the laws. You don't want to patrol your streets. You don't want to put men out there. You don't want to make the arrests. It's not poverty. They like to say, well, it's a crime is some sort of function of poverty. No, it's not a socioeconomic problem. If it can be solved with just a handful of National Guard troops monitoring the streets and actually making arrests, then you can still be poor and have, what? A crime-free neighborhood. Even if you're at the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum. It's not racism. It's not like they got rid of all the racism and that's why the crime went away in D.C. It's not they arrested a whole bunch of red state gun traffickers. It's just the lack of law enforcement. Because then the general public, if they ever get an honest look at this, which they won't through the media, but they might on social media, they'll say, well, damn, if it just took a few people with guns patrolling the streets and actually making arrests and enforcing the law, then we could have been doing this the entire time. Because they've been told you didn't buy this, but there's a lot of people that buy this, that, well, one of the reasons we have crime, one of the solutions to crime is we need more parks and we need more playgrounds and we need after school programs, or we need more affordable housing or a job training program, or we need to start confiscating everyone's guns. No, that's not how they solved the crime for the last 2 weeks in D.C. It wasn't a job training program. It wasn't from new parks and playgrounds, or they got new water fountains, or they didn't revamp a theater. They didn't give out more food stamps or welfare. They didn't give out scholarships. There wasn't universal pre-K or taxpayer-subsidized daycare. It was just enforcing the damn law. That's all. So you know what that is? That's the exact opposite of what they said would fix the problems with crime and safety in the inner city. They said defund the police. And they didn't just say it. Thousands of Antifa and BLM rioters burned, looted, beat the snot out of people just because they were so sure Life would be better in their neighborhood if we scaled back the police, the patrols, the funding, law enforcement numbers. It's the exact opposite of what just worked in DC. And if this is a model that can be repeated city to city, then that whole idea of we just need to start another program. We need to throw more taxpayer money at it. We need midnight basketball or free swim lessons at the park or universal pre-K. No, you don't need that. It wasn't gun control. It wasn't affordable housing. It wasn't a job training program. It was just enforcing the law. It was more cops. How about don't treat your cops like trash? Hire a bunch of them, train them well, put them on the streets, and allow them to actually enforce the law. But coming up next, you're going to hear from the mayor of Chicago's own mouth how he's going to somehow try and blame you. When you know, when this National Guard goes in there and they quell things, it'll be obvious that the reason why the streets are so bad is because he didn't choose to do something he could have been doing this entire time. And I know it sounds, again, slap your forehead dumb. But how can you, as a red state pro-gun American, be more responsible for the gun crime in D.C. than the actual mayor? I know, it sounds like I'm making it up. You're going to hear the sound bites with your own ears coming up next on The James Show. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Did you know you're at fault for the ridiculous amount of gun crime in Chicago? Yeah, that's your fault. Sorry, little red state pro-gun people. This is Brandon Johnson, mayor of Chicago. He's having a press conference where he's saying, we will not let Donald Trump bring the National Guard into Chicago. I don't care if it saves lives. I don't care if it worked in D.C. I don't care if it'll improve the standard of living for my citizens. We can't let Trump have a win. And he blames you.
We need the federal government to stop the endless flow of guns into our state and into our city. Chicago police officers have taken more than 24,000 guns, illegal guns, off the streets of Chicago since I've taken office. Over 24,000 illegal guns.
Did it make you
taken
safer?
off the streets of Chicago since I've been in office. They have worked hard every single day to make our city safer. And they've made historic progress. However, we will never be able to end gun violence in Chicago as long as the president continues to allow tens of thousands of guns to be trafficked into our state and our city. The vast majority of guns do not come from Chicago. They are not made in Cook County. They are not bought in the state of Illinois. These guns come from red states. They are coming from Indiana. They are coming from Mississippi. They are coming from Louisiana. And that is the harsh reality, whether Republicans like it or not. Occupying our city will do nothing to solve this problem.
You know what? That kind of ticks me off. The guns are coming from Indiana, Mississippi, Louisiana. Hey, some of them are coming from Texas too, damn it. I mean, don't leave us out of that blame. I would love some of that smoke. Man, it's so hard to just sit through that. I know that was only a minute and 10 seconds, but my God, how many times did you want to just jump in? First, I like how he starts off saying, we've confiscated, 24,000 guns since he's been mayor? He hadn't been mayor that long. 24,000 guns? Oh, okay. Did it make you safer? Right? Does he not notice that? Wow. At some point, we've taken 24,000 guns and we're still not safer. Maybe taking guns isn't working. Maybe if you stop taking guns, these people could defend themselves. No, I don't think that would help much. But clearly, taking 24,000 guns off the streets didn't make you safer. But you're still doing it. Why? Well, not because it makes you safer, because you're anti-gun. Great. Can we just be a little more pragmatic? Can we look at the things, if we admit that we're in a failed situation now, can't we look at the policies we're trying now and be like, well, this hasn't worked? How about we at least say, can we try something different? And on both of those, it's a no. No, in order for them to maintain this narrative, they have to act like, well, 24,000 guns. Well, we just didn't confiscate enough. You confiscated 24,000. And then the second obvious thing that's another slap yourself in the forehead moment is the guy saying these guns aren't coming from Chicago. They're coming from red states. It's not coming from Cook County. It's not coming from Illinois. Yeah, that's because you outlawed them. Ding dong. You don't sell guns there. You give guns a hard time. You have one of the worst gun law states in the country. By some rankings, Illinois is the least gun-friendly state in the country. But yeah, if you shut down all your gun shops, you're not going to have a whole lot of guns coming from Chicago. But then the other head-slapping moment is he's saying it's not his fault. The gun problem isn't his fault. It's not a failure of gun control. It's a failure of the people who haven't implemented his policy. It's a failure of the red states that have lax gun laws that allows guns to be trafficked into Chicago. But wait a second. Chicago has the crime problem. The red counties in America do not. It's a blue county, and not exclusively, but overwhelmingly blue county issue. 2% of our counties account for 51% of our murders, and they ain't 51% of the population. So don't give me that per capita crap. Per capita is on my side on this one. Yes, so our gun policy here that's failed, The reason it's failed is because these other places who have a lax gun policy but no gun crime or little gun crime, they need to implement our policies. What kind of sense does that make? Your policies are doing worse. All the people, like when I mentioned earlier, more than half of the counties every year in America, because I like to break this down on a county level. I really like to break it down on this as small of a level as possible, but county is one of the smallest measurements we have for unincorporated places. But you should copy what they do. More than half of the counties have 0 murders every year. What are they doing? Is it because they have strict gun control? Is it because they've stopped red state gun traffickers from bringing guns into their neighborhoods? Because the red state areas or the red county areas have a whole bunch of guns. They have to have them in order to traffic them to begin with. How come there's no violence there? Because it sounds like his theory is the prevalence of guns is the problem. We have a prevalence of guns out in rural America. We're not shooting each other up. It ain't the guns. It's not the inanimate objects. You know, at the Charlottesville Unite the Right, whatever statue rally, where the girl got run over in a car by a white supremacist who was trying to escape and he's getting beaten up by the mob. He was trying to get out of there and he ran over a few people and Heather Heyer died. Did they say, oh boy, we have a problem with cars? It's the cars, y'all. We've got to do something about cars. Or did they blame the person behind the wheel? Yeah, they blame the person behind the wheel. Look, it's a white supremacist. We have a problem with white supremacist violence in this country. In fact, that's our number one terror threat is domestic terrorism like this guy. You didn't blame the car, did you? So yeah, your fault. And there's just 8 like logical fallacies in a minute and 10 seconds. But next clip from Brandon Johnson, Mayor of Chicago.
No matter how much work we do or how hard we work, whether it's expanding our detectives bureau, investing in community violence intervention, and addressing the root causes of crime, none of it will ever be enough until the president decides to end the mass trafficking of guns in our city. For every gun that the Chicago Police Department fights to get off the streets, 2 or 3 more new guns come into our city. Chicago will continue to have a violence problem as long as red states continue to have a gun problem. Shootings will continue as long as this presidential administration continues to put politics over people.
Bro, he talks about his own citizens in Chicago as if they're zoo animals. Dude, if I talk like that, I'd be kicked off the air, and rightfully so. So in red state America, where we're just swimming with guns, I mean, we all have got, I don't know if all of us got guns, but hell, I got like 10 guns. So I don't go on shooting sprees when I'm surrounded with guns. You don't go on shooting sprees when you're surrounded with guns. Red counties and red areas and red state demographics don't go on shooting sprees, and we're swimming in guns. But somehow, if you just let these idiots in the town of Chicago under the mayor, Brandon Johnson, if they're allowed to be anywhere near a gun, well, of course crime's going to happen. You can't expect them to behave with a gun. These people are so bad, if you put a gun in their sight, they can't help but commit crime with it. What? That's your position? That's not my position. I'm not talking about them like zoo animals. Brandon Johnson is. Unbelievable stuff. I feel like that Casey Kasem viral video that came out like 10 years ago. Did you ever hear that one, the Casey Kasem outtake? Where he was just, it ends up with ponderous stuff. Man, that's how I feel right now. At the very end of this clip, you'll hear Casey Kasem say ponderous stuff. This is exactly how I feel. Ponderous stuff, man. Ponderous.
Now, we're up to our long-distance dedication. And this one is about kids and pets and a situation that we can all understand, whether we have kids or pets or neither. It's from a man in Cincinnati, Ohio. And here's what he writes. Dear Casey, this may seem to be a strange dedication request, but I'm quite sincere, and it'll mean a lot if you play it. Recently, there was a death in our family. He was a little dog named Snuggles, but he was most certainly a part of... Let's start again. From coming out of the record. Play the record, okay? Please. See, when you come out of those up-tempo numbers, man, it's impossible to make those transitions, and then you got to go into somebody dying. You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for, but if we can't come out of a slow record, I don't understand it. Is Don on the phone? Okay, I want a concerted effort to come out of a record that isn't a up-tempo record every time I do a death dedication. Now, make it, and I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see this week.
Yeah, the pictures.
It's a last time I want somebody to use his brain to not come out of a record that is that's up tempo, and I got to talk about a dog dying. Boy, this is ponderous, man. Ponderous.
That's me, man. Ponderous. How do they even say this? Ponderous stuff. 800-288-9227. What is the problem with violence in Chicago? I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. So the Chicago mayor doesn't want Trump to come in with the National Guard into Chicago. I don't understand that other than politics. You don't want the laws to be enforced. You don't want lives to be saved. You know, I had a little question mark before he went into D.C. on whether or not he should go into Chicago, but now, the only arguments you could really have that would resonate with me at all is, well, you know, constitutionally speaking, if the governor and the mayor don't want him there, should we really be sending the National Guard down their throats against their wishes? Okay, maybe that's the argument. That's not the argument he's making. He's worried about being proven wrong on so many of these other things because he's telling you right now it's a problem with the guns. But if we can go in there, or if the National Guard can go in there and they can shut down crime in Chicago like they did to D.C., then that'll prove him wrong. We weren't just one more gun law away from safety. It was just enforcing the existing laws. Wow, what a radical concept. He would look foolish if Trump was successful in this endeavor. So it's not just politics and anti-Trump. It's also politics and throwing the whole narrative into a bonfire. This is Evan in Rockwall. You're on WBAP.
Hey, how's it going? Hey, so I agree that that's a complete fallacy, right? Because what are we supposed to do if guns are coming from Indiana, Louisiana, and they're definitely coming here from Texas? I totally agree with that.
I hope so.
So by that same logic, right? Should we start blaming alcoholism on St. Louis? Because that's where
and Tennessee
or Milwaukee.
You know what? That is fantastic. Garrett 3, will you give Evan 7 points for that? Evan got a touchdown. He's on the scoreboard, okay? And if you don't know what that means, just write it down for Garrett 1 because he gets back on Monday. But no, that's a great point. If the gun crime in Chicago is a function of the guns that came from outside of Chicago, then yeah, what about the alcoholism? What about dude, that goes...
Drunk driving? I mean, the drunk driving. Do we blame the Detroit for their cars that they make?
Well, there's also like if they really want to go down this path, you know, the thing that's killing Americans more than guns, more than drugs, even more than car crashes, is being fat. And so, what are we supposed to blame sugar for that? Are we supposed to start interdicting sugar at the border? Are we supposed to have sugar control? Are we supposed to? And all this sounds absolutely silly because it hasn't been beaten into our heads our whole lives. That's the only reason gun control doesn't sound completely silly to everyone. It's just they've had it beaten into their heads. It has failed everywhere it's tried. The harder they try, the harder it fails. And the places with the worst gun violence problems in America are the places with the strictest gun control laws. And Evan, that is a fact pattern that spreads beyond our borders. The countries with the worst gun crime problems, the gun violence problems, they all have gun control. They all have more strict gun control than we do.
Right.
And we're not even that high on the list. You know, they like to say, well, we have the highest gun crime rate of any developed country. Oh, yeah. If you want to only stack us up against like the 11 whitest countries in the world that don't have gun crime, sure, we'd be in last place. But if you want to count all the countries, we're like 112th in gun crime, 112th in murder rate and things like that. So yeah, we don't really have the facts on the side of Brandon Johnson. I love your point though, Evan. You nailed it. Thank you, sir. Let's try Steve.
Right on.
Steve in Weatherford, you're next up on WBAP.
Hey, sir, James. The mayor of Chicago should immediately, today or first thing in the morning, tell his security detail, get rid of all guns. We're only going to use slings. Or be a hypocrite one.
Man, you know, that is a gun control argument that has worked every time it's tried my entire life. You know, well, we've got to do something about guns. Well, your bodyguard has a gun. I remember it's like when the news came out that Rosie O'Donnell had a bodyguard with a gun on him. We were all like, oh, dang, it's over now. But it's not over. Like, I don't understand how everyone else doesn't see the hypocrisy that Stephen Weatherford just pointed out. We guard the White House with people with guns. We guard Congress with people with guns. We guard banks with people with guns. We guard everything that's important to us in our entire society with people with guns, except the most vulnerable, our children. Make that make sense, Steve.
Well, I just sent a message to my former Congressman Louis Gohmert in East Texas. Any school in America that wants an armed National Guardsman or Guards lady out front to guard their school until we can get this school shooting stuff under control, ask. And I bet Trump will make sure you get an armed guardsman to stand out in front of your school to let everybody know, don't come here screwing around.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the solution, but that would help somewhat. Thank you very much. That's Steve in Weatherford. Coming up, if you want to wait through the break, I'll talk to Ken in Arlington. And if you want to get in on the conversation, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Also coming up, you'll hear Tim Walz. He's for gun confiscation, and he was pretty open about it after the shooting that happened on his watch in his state's largest city. Yeah, what do we need? Gun confiscation. It's coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. And you're pretty good at this whole gun debate thing. I guess we've had these chats on WBAP a few times before. A couple of great comments here on the situation in Chicago. If you're just joining us, Donald Trump saying it's not if, it's when he's going to send the National Guard into Chicago and do what he did to D.C. Lock it down, no more murders, crime plummets, people are safe and happy. What could possibly go wrong? Well, Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, doesn't want that to happen. The governor, J.B. Pritzker, doesn't want that to happen. And what are they saying the problem is? Oh, they don't need more National Guard. No. It's a gun problem. And it's coming from the old red states. That's what it is. No, it's not it. Look, we're awash in guns in red state America. And that's not where the gun problem is it? That's not where the gun crime is. Now, is it? No, I don't think it's the guns. I think it's the people in the hands of the guns and the other people who refuse to enforce it when someone misuses the guns. David Ellis sent in a Facebook message. He said, look at Dallas versus Fort Worth, 30 miles apart, but one was just listed as the safest, the other not so much. Guns aren't the problem. Enforcement is. Yeah, so I would say halfway. Enforcement's a big part of that. Also, they just create more criminals in those societies. The people who misbehave with guns, that's where they're coming from. It's not like we were born in red state America. We learned to misuse guns and be disrespectful with guns. And then we all moved to the 2% of counties where 50% of murders happen and then just went on shooting sprees. So, yeah, you create criminals and then you don't enforce the laws against criminals. There's your gun problem, sir. 800-288-9227. This is Ken in Arlington. You're on WBAP.
Hey, I'm thinking the Gulf of America is connected to the Mississippi River, so they're just running the guns straight up from Venezuela into Chicago.
So we need to blow up more boats? Is that what you're saying?
Well, right. I mean, yeah. Just sit out there with the 12er on the beach, and an AR, and just start popping off boats.
Right. Well, think about how anti-American this is. America is supposed to be the pro-gun country, and we are the pro-gun country. We're the ones who were built and we were birthed out of just everyday citizens grabbing a gun, a weapon of war, and going out in the streets and making it happen. And so we've always, we have the Second Amendment. We're the only country that does that. And it's turned us into the hyperpower of the world. We should be celebrating this. And the people that are having the problems in America right now with gun crimes are the people that are departing from that tradition. And it's not an accident.
Right. And so, like I said, 12er and an AR or whatever your choice is, and just start taking them out.
Popping the boats. All right, we got comedians around here. Well done. That's Ken in Arlington. So where's all this going? Tim Walz, the mayor of Minnesota, they just had the mass shooting in Minneapolis last week. His response, the exact opposite of the American tradition. He wants gun confiscation. That's his response. Gun confiscation. Let's do what they did in Europe and Australia.
When they had a school shooting in Scotland or they had an incident in Australia, they simply made changes. They are just as free as we are. They still have gun ownership requirements, but they have made sure that they don't have these. And since they did those things, they don't have them. We are an outlier amongst nations in terms of what happens to our children. And I refuse to think that that's okay. It's simply not.
Yeah, Sorry, hit the wrong button. Yeah, let's do what they do in these other countries where you get arrested for social media posts now. No, they're just as free as we are. No, they're not. You get arrested for offensive tweets, not actionable threats against the president or against your ex-wife or against someone. Just the ethereal concept of you coloring outside the lines of acceptable thought can get you arrested. Yeah, they're just as free as we are. Are you kidding? I remember Australia set up literal concentration camps during COVID and herded in their unvaxxed population to get there. Yeah, you didn't get the shot? Why don't you come with me, sir? No, you can't take your big Crocodile Dundee knife. No, you can't take any Vegemite. Just come in, get in this concentration camp. Yeah, just as free as we are. And how's that working? How's that working in Scotland and England, where they did gun control, so now they don't have this problem anymore? Yeah, where are we at now?
The truth is that kitchen knives are perhaps 25% of the knives used in most of the terrible crimes. That's one of the stats in the films. And those kitchen knives are usually a domestic situation. Okay. So kitchen knives, of course, it's very difficult. They're a domestic knife. I do think there is areas of innovation that we can do with kitchen knives. I hate to say it, not all kitchen knives need to have a point on them. That sounds like a crazy thing to say, but actually it would reduce. You can still cut your food without the point on the knife, which is an innovative way to sort of look at it. And in a country in crisis, I'm sorry, but yeah, let's look at that.
They're having a knife control crisis. That's where they're at. Yeah, that really works so good, Tim. Let's copy the people of England and Australia, or Scotland and Australia. So where will we be? Will that get rid of violent crime? No, it'll just switch to knife crime for the most part. You'll still be defenseless. And then they won't say, well, let's get back to guns so you can defend yourself against the knife-wielding attackers. They'll say, maybe we need to start taking the points off the end of knives so they won't be so stabby. Clowns. Absolute clowns. I'm not falling for it. You're not falling for it. But Tim Walz is out there saying it. Brandon Johnson's out there saying it. Most of the media is repeating it like it's the gospel truth, and it's the dumbest thing you've heard all week. Coming up next on The James Show, the top Democrat in the Texas House of Representatives just declared white Americans as racist. Just generally speaking, you guys are all a bunch of racists. That's next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Do you know the name Gene Wu? It's okay if you don't, but he's the head of the Texas Democrats in the Texas House of Representatives. He's the head of the Democrat caucus. He was the leader when they all absconded and ran off to wherever they ran off to break the quorum last month for the special session. That was his bag. Well, he was recently on a podcast doing an interview, and he just slandered all of America and every American in American history, or at least the white ones. And I'm really tired of this ugly revisionist history that it just is so politically convenient to the current narrative in 2025. And in this one, here, I'll let you hear it yourself here. This is Gene Wu. He's a state rep out of the Houston area.
Most Asian Americans, when they come here, don't know the history and have never seen what was done in the past. And so, their vision of America is one that's very, very sterile and very clean. And so they don't understand this stuff when it happens. They said, we don't know what this is. And I said, this is racism. This is what they have done to everybody.
Damn it, dude. You know what? I am tired of being blamed for the things that the Democrats did 178 years ago. How are you accountable for the misbehaving Democrats in the 1800s on? How is that your problem? Don't you love how they conflate Democrat policy for what was the entirety of America? Yeah, well, America was built on slavery. No, not all of America. Only 13 of our 50 states had slavery, and there was just a small, tiny, 2% of the population there that had slaves. Now, a bunch of people were okay with it, but most people weren't. You know what they were called? They were called Republicans. But the Democrat Party has done all the nasty things that you get blamed for. When they talk about how this is a racist, terrible country. Well, no, not the whole country, just the Democrat part of it. Yeah, well, they did the Trail of Tears. No, the Democrats did the Trail of Tears. Well, we had slavery. Well, that was a Democrat policy too. Well, we did segregation and Jim Crow. Democrat. Well, we didn't allow women to have the right to vote. You know who was at the forefront of the women's suffrage movement, Susan B. Anthony? The Republicans. Have y'all gotten anything right? So all these things, it's a misogynist country, it's a racist country, it's a bigoted country. It was bad to black people, it was bad to Indians. No, your party was. The Republicans at all times were fighting against you doing that. So no, that is not the history of America, sir. That is the history of the party that you're a part of right now. Can't stand that. No, that's not America's history. That's your history, bro. That's your team. My team doesn't have a Trail of Tears. My team didn't support segregation and Jim Crow and making people go into different bathrooms based on the color of their skin. What is their deal with bathrooms? Why are they always messing with people's going to the ones and twos? Ponderous stuff, man. To quote our good buddy, everyone's favorite Muslim, Casey Kasem, ponderous stuff. Did y'all know he was a Muslim? Did you know Casey Kasem was a Muslim? Do you know that? I mean, he's from, I think, Detroit or whatever, but his family was like Sufi Muslim from Lebanon or something like that. See, we're not racist. No one wanted to deport Casey Kasem because we hate ethnic minorities or religious minorities or immigrants or foreigners or... No, Casey Kasem, one of the universally most beloved American personalities in your lifetime. Got to be on almost every radio station in every town ever. He was the guest character in Scooby-Doo. No, this is not a hateful, terrible country. Oh, it's just racism everywhere. Shut up. No one supports that. You're being silly. It's kind of embarrassing when you conflate my history with the history of your party, because your party's history is terrible, sir. 800-288-9227. 288-9227. This is why they don't want you to learn history. This is why they're tearing down statues. This is why they're tearing down monuments. This is why they're rewriting history books. Like, we got to change this real quick. We need a new American history. It'll be called the 1619 Project, and that'll stain all of America with the sins of the Democrat Party. So it'll look like they were all in it, and it wasn't just us. No, it was just the Democrats. It was just the Democrats that put people in internment camps in World War II. It was just the Democrats that put a Klansman in the Supreme Court in the 1930s. It was a Democrat who decided to resegregate the White House after it had been desegregated. Teddy Roosevelt desegregated. Woodrow Wilson came in. They're like, what? You mean the black people are... No, they're supposed to be separate. That was your party, sir. Gene Wu. Coming up next on The James Show. If there's kids in the car that are a little young, this is a rare thing. You might want to skip it. I'll give you a brief synopsis, and then you decide over the commercial break if you want to come back. Now, if you got kids who are 12 or older in the car, they need to hear this kind of weird stuff. But from our neighbors up in Oklahoma, there's a horrible, just disgusting, it'll make you throw up story. An 11-year-old had a baby. It was her stepdad's. Stepdad's in jail. Mom's in jail. Grandma just went to jail. What the heck do we do in this situation? Do we put her entire family in jail? She's only 11. Who's going to take care of her? Who's going to help her take care of her baby? And there's no easy answer to this. So if you're comfortable, come back with me in about 3.5, 4 minutes, and we'll talk about this story in Oklahoma. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. All right, football fans, you and I need to have a little chat here because the day is finally here. Football, real football, not that cheap copy, that fake football called preseason. The real thing is here. James Parker here for Prize Picks. Dak Prescott can be on your lineup, and he has the maximum discount you can have on a stat. 0.5 passing yards. Look, I'm going to go ahead and make a lineup right here in front of your face. I'm going to say more on that one. That's an easy one. And then I got to find someone else. Let's see. What was it? Here. Saquon Barkley. 1 touchdown. Will he get more or less? I'm not going to tell you what to pick on that one. But I'm not liking our odds, gentlemen. But look, Prize Picks, I did it last year. It really did add a lot of fun to the football I was already watching. I'm not that optimistic about this season, but Prize Picks is so fun. Football will still be enjoyable, even if your team's not doing so good. Even maybe we're not going to win the Super Bowl. You can still add a little bit more fun to it. Look, and the Eagles are playing the Cowboys tonight, so the Prize Picks season starts tonight. But America's #1 daily fantasy sports app is different than the rest of the fantasy sports that you played. I remember when I was on an old-fashioned legacy fantasy league, I could submit a lineup, and then I would find out at the end of the week, at the end of the Monday night game, how I did. Well, for Prize Picks, you can have a lineup tonight. You can have a lineup tomorrow for the Chiefs versus the Chargers. You can have a lineup for Sunday for all those other games. You can do another lineup for Monday. You could do 4 different lineups in one weekend. So check it out. And if you're new to the Prize Picks app, you're going to get a little bonus here. Use promo code WBAP when you download the Prize Picks app, and you get $50 in lineups with your first $5 lineup. Download Prize Picks, use promo code WBAP, get $50 in lineups on me with your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. If you didn't hear the news about the programming changes here at WBAP, the show that's on before me is now Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. Be sure to give them a good listen. They're a fun show. It's usually a trio, but it's been a duo as of late. I think one guy's out with some health issues. But give them a listen. Give them a fair shot. And look, let me know what you think. So we have a couple of issues we're juggling here. We were talking about the mayor of Chicago being a little reluctant to have Trump send in the National Guard. We were having Gene Wu, the head of the Texas Democrat caucus in the House of Representatives in Austin, say that, yeah, all of America's history, they're just all a bunch of racists. That's all. I'm just getting tired of that oversimplification. And coming up next, the terrible story of a Oklahoma 11-year-old who gave birth, and what the heck do you do in a situation like that? But to the phones we go. This looks like it might be good. Mike in Denton, you're on WBAP.
James, what's happening?
Hey, Mike, go ahead.
Okay, this is on your last segment. Before I make this statement, you need to know I'm apolitical and I despise both sides fairly equally.
Okay.
Okay, while it is 100% true that Democrats were responsible for old-time slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, and fighting the civil rights movement, it was a very specific kind of Democrat, which was the Southern Democrat. Now, when a Democrat signed the Civil Rights Act, that was the beginning of the death of the Southern Democrat. And throughout the rest of the 60s into the 70s, they all jumped ship. Where did they go politically?
All right, let's talk about that. This is a great conversation to have. So in 1964, the Civil Rights Act, you say, is the defining turning point, sort of the border, the boundary between when the Democrats were bad and then when they switched to they're not bad anymore, and because a bunch of them jumped ship.
I'm saying the Southern Democrats left the party.
Yeah. Okay. So, did you know the filibuster of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, longest filibuster in history? The three big participants in that: William Fulbright, Al Gore Sr., and Robert Byrd. Which one of them flipped?
It wasn't Gore.
Nope.
Sr. Which one?
None of them, actually. It's kind of a trick question. See, William Fulbright was just 3 years after that. Bill Clinton came back from Moscow and became his intern. He worked on his staff. That was his mentor. That's Bill Clinton's mentor. That's a Southern Democrat. He later became the Attorney General and then governor of Arkansas as a Democrat, and then, of course, president as a Democrat. He never switched. Al Gore, his son, Al Gore Jr., still a Democrat to this day, and not just like a fringe Democrat. He was, the senator and then the vice president and then the presidential nominee. So the figurehead of the Democrat Party for a good chunk of time there. Robert Byrd remained a Democrat until he died. And at his funeral, you had Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden all speak glowingly about him at his funeral. And that was just a few years ago. And that's our last three Democrat presidents. The real switch that happened wasn't between the party ideologies. It's the geography. I don't mind you saying, the Southern Democrats, because the Northern Democrats weren't as bad as the Southern Democrats when it came to racism and slavery, but they were still bad, and they were still in that party, and they still supported it.
Yeah.
Well, so the real question is the switch. When did the Southern states stop being Democrat and start being Republican? And we had a couple of sort of etch-a-sketch elections in the last almost 50 years, where the whole map just got shook up and reset. That was Nixon. The whole country, except for one state, voted for Nixon in his second election. What was that, 72, I think? And then in 84, everyone voted for Ronald Reagan. Every state went Republican except for Minnesota. So the switch...
And Carter was pretty much the last hurrah of the Southern Democrats.
No, well, you don't count Bill Clinton or Al Gore?
Not as much, but let me bring this point, James. I'm not talking about politicians jumping ship. I'm talking about voters.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Who
would have been the KK members and everything else. They were Democrats.
Well, see, there wasn't a switch. It's not that the Democrats stopped lynching people, and so then the Republicans started lynching people. When the Democrats stopped lynching people, lynching stops. Racial lynchings stop. When the Democrats stopped supporting segregation, segregation went away. When the Democrats stopped supporting Jim Crow laws, it went away. The Republicans didn't take up the mantle, and they're like, no, well, you got to go to the separate bathroom now. This is our bit. And so the Democrats, they're still racist. They just have a more benevolent form of racism. You know, like you can't let guns go into the south side of Chicago. They'll just start shooting each other. They can't handle guns. These red state people, they're fine. But these people here, they are a lesser than. They can't be allowed to have access to guns. Are you crazy? That's the problem. They can't be expected to have a voter ID on election day. You know how hard it is to get a driver's license? These people are idiots. So it's still racist. It's just a more benevolent form of racism. And, you know, if they keep throwing enough money around, people look the other way because they think, well, overall, you know, at least I'm not supporting Hitler. So yeah, I love having this discussion though, because it's do
you agree that the majority of the Southern Democrat voters became Republicans?
No, I don't.
With the Reagan era, so they just stopped voting?
No, they didn't stop voting. They died.
And what about their children?
They didn't vote the same way that their parents did.
Because they saw them turn their allegiance, right?
No, because no one is racist anymore. No one is driven by racism. And I don't want to say no one is driven, but less than 10% of the country, I believe, is genuinely racist or even gives a rip about race when it comes to how they vote here. So if you know, no one's racist anymore, the Democrats had to drop being racist because it was a losing proposition. They got absolutely killed by that because we just grew out of it. We're smarter than that. Racism's really dumb. It's an old idea that doesn't work in the modern times. And so, you know, the Republicans were never on that train. And when the Democrats got off that train, racism hasn't been a problem since. Name one person in an elected office who will answer the question, are you a racist? Name one that'll say yes. I can't think of one.
Taylor Greene?
Marjorie Taylor Greene. No, she doesn't meant to be racist. All right. I got to run here. It was a good chat. Good stuff, Mike. Because
hey, James, just one quick thing. I'm a local comedian. I want you to come see a show sometime, and I will message you. You're on the east side of the Metroplex, right?
I'm downtown.
Dallas?
Well, yeah. I mean, I work downtown. I live in Bug Tussle, so I'm not really in a place. Just send me an email, and we'll work something out.
Sounds good, man.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Take care.
All right, I'm going to start with this next story, and then we'll get to the ugly stuff after the break. Because, you know, on so many of these other issues, like what Mike just talked about, I have the answers for all of Mike's questions in that scenario. I don't have the answers for this one. An 11-year-old last month gave birth to a baby in Oklahoma. It's even worse than you think. It's her stepfather's baby. Her stepfather's the dad. And she had the baby at home. Now, there's 5 other children in the home. And when the authorities finally got wind and came out there, the kids are living in squalor. There was dog feces in the house that hadn't been picked up. Now, that happens sometimes in the Parker household for maybe on a 4-minute clip, but we don't live like that. And when you see all these other dominoes dropping, what is going to happen to this poor girl? Her stepfather, obviously arrested. Her mom's been arrested, all kinds of charges, because after it happened, she didn't go to the cops. After she found out about the abuse, she didn't go to the cops. The pregnancy didn't go to the cops. She had the baby in the house to avoid going to the hospital to avoid the cops. And grandmother lives across the street from the family. Knew about it, didn't call the cops. Now they're all in jail. What is going to happen to these kids? More of the heartbreaking details coming up next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. If you're just joining us, we're in the middle of a tough story. Our neighbors up in Oklahoma are in a weird situation here. What do you do if an 11-year-old gets pregnant and has a baby? Well, obviously, whoever the monster is who raped her, if it's an adult, you throw him in jail and you charge him with everything you possibly can. If anyone else knew anything about it, they go to jail too. Well, it turns out mom probably knew something about it. Grandma probably knew something about it. They didn't say anything. And so what? Her whole family goes to jail. Now who takes care of her? I don't have a lot of answers for this, but I promise more details. This is from the local station KJRH.com.
Nobody, not even the neighbors. They say things, but they don't know what was going on.
I'm Isabel Flores with 2 News Oklahoma. You just heard from the 11-year-old's grandmother, Michelle Justice, who we spoke to in an exclusive interview last week. She has just been placed under arrest for child neglect. This comes after it was found through a paternity test that the 11-year-old's stepfather was found to have a 99% DNA match to the baby she birthed.
I live next door. I have witnessed them go back and forth to their mama's house across the street. She has provided for their needs because they have no running water for the last 2 or 3 years.
What?
Last week, I spoke with a neighbor who lives next to the house the 11-year-old and her siblings were removed from. She believes the entire family knew what was happening. The child's stepfather, Dustin Walker, and her mother, Cherie Walker, were also arrested last week on child neglect charges,
Gross.
according to an affidavit filed in Muskogee County. Authorities say the parents failed to provide medical care for their 11-year-old daughter, who was 36 weeks pregnant and delivered inside the home. Both parents claimed they didn't know she was pregnant. The child had not seen a doctor in over a year. The district attorney's office confirmed Justice faces 6 counts of child neglect. The affidavit states Justice lived across the street from her granddaughter, saw her almost daily, and was in regular contact, including the day she gave birth. It also states Justice cared for 5 other children in the same home, but failed to report the pregnancy.
I think Grandma thought she was doing what was right to help those kids. But what parent allows that?
In Muskogee, Isabel Flores, 2 News, Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'll tell you who. An unfit parent, a sick parent that doesn't deserve to have kids. I don't know what we do for the kid, though. Where does she go? Is there some other relative? Is there an aunt or an uncle? Do you trust anyone in that family to take care of her? Is she going to get adopted? How do you adopt a parent? This is terrible. 800-288-9227. God, this is gross. Karen in Plum, you're on WBAP.
Hi. I was that kid. From the time I was 6 until I was 12 years old, I was abused by my father and as well as sexually trafficked. And when they found out about him, he got 6 weeks of alcohol rehab. That's it.
Oh, hang on. Did you get pregnant?
No, but it was suspected at one point. And I can tell you that the most important thing that happens now is that little girl gets taken care of. And there are multiple organizations nationwide that can help her.
Well, what happened with you? Did your dad go to jail?
He got 6 weeks of alcohol rehab.
Well, no, I mean, eventually.
No.
Is he out of jail now? Did he just live the rest of his life happy and free?
Yep.
God, that's awful.
Yes, he did.
Doesn't that make you sick to your stomach? How can you even tell me this story? This is terrible.
Well, I'm better. I got the help that I needed. And the problem is that in society today, we focus so much more on, if you look at the Epstein files and things like that, and the school teachers that have abused the kids,
right?
We talk about them, but we never talk about what should be done for the kids. And that's the focus that has to change, is focusing on how, if ever there's a story, putting the numbers out there for these organizations that will step in and help.
Well, Karen.
And yeah.
What should we do for her?
Well, hopefully she has a father, a real father. But there's a national organization called RAINN, RAINN.
Right, heard of them.
I don't have the number. There's Mama Bear is out there. And you can, I mean, literally Google it, and you can find multiple organizations.
I've
that
heard
will
of RAIN
get her all
before,
the help.
and I just
Yeah.
double checked RAINN.org. It's the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Yeah, this has come up on shows
and they-
before. It just wasn't on the top of
and
my
they'll
head.
help.
So
It's going to take a long time for this girl to get over this, because this wasn't just people. The fact that they call it molestation is wrong entirely. She needs to be treated for rape.
Oh yeah,
It was rape.
That's total rape. Well,
yeah.
Where was your mom during all this, Karen?
Well, she didn't know for the most part. She was major breadwinner. And once I told her, she put a stop to it and called the police and everything, but again, he got 6 weeks and of alcohol rehab, and he got a PPO until I was 18. That was it. Literally it.
That sounds absolutely terrible.
Mm-hmm. And this was back in the 70s. So, it was all just be quiet, don't tell anybody, never speak about this again, never, ever, ever. And but fortunately today, she's going to be able to talk about it, but still there's a stigma there, that was, at least when I was growing up, we were told, don't tell anybody because your friend's parents will think that you're a sexually active kid.
Yeah, or your damaged goods or whatever. God,
right,
Karen.
exactly. And so, it takes a lot of, and I help other people about it.
All right. Can I ask you another question about the aftermath after this all happened?
Yeah.
Your mom divorced him immediately and kicked him out of your life, never to be seen again?
Well, he used to stalk me. When I was a cheerleader in high school, he would put my games and I'd see him there. He wasn't supposed to be there.
What a nightmare.
But, he would want, my brothers were still allowed to see him, which I never understood. But yeah, no, I saw him one other time as an adult after I was married to a wonderful husband. He also helped me through all of this. I went and I stood in front of him to let him know that that I survived. I lived, and he wanted to destroy me. He told me that, and he lost.
What was his problem? What was he abused as a kid too? And so he's just acting out, trying to reach that equilibrium again. Like, what's his bit? What happened to him? Oh, I'm sorry. Your phone broke up. Say it again. We lost her. Hello. Say that again. What was wrong with him?
I think he was just a sociopath. He beat all of us, relentlessly. I think he was just one of those people. He was, an
empath, a psychopath.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know what else I wonder right now, Karen?
Go ahead.
There could be someone who's going through that right now, listening to this show. There could be like a mom.
1 in 6 women will be sexually abused before the age of 18. 1 out of 6. There's 6 million of us right now.
Don't make me cry, dude. I have 2 daughters.
That's true. It's just true. 1 in 6. 6 million women right now.
Okay. I think we all need to hear that. Thank you very much, Karen and Plum.
Thank you, James.
Hey, I hope someone gets some help from that. RAINN, RAINN.org. That is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Please don't be scared to call. The whole of society will be on your side. RAINN.org. All right, we're going to try and end on a little brighter note. Some comedy coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Thank you very much for hanging out. And listen, did you get to hear the news? I had mentioned about this time yesterday. There was a big programming announcement for WBAP that was happening at 11:05 this morning. And we have a new show that's my lead-in, Markley Van Camp and Robbins. It's a fun little show that if you tune into the James Show a little bit early, that's what you're going to hear now. Let me know what you think. I'm actually a fan of their stuff. So check it out. Progress. Time moves on. WBAP evolves. And this is just the latest iteration. I want to end on a much more lighthearted note than the last couple of segments. Boy, that's really a bummer having to talk about those terrible stories about kids. But in this one, we have to go back into the well of Scott Jennings. This is the man who has the job I really want. I love the James Show. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world except for Scott Jennings' job. And Scott Jennings, if you're not familiar, he's this guy who shows up on the evening show. Abby Phillips is the host, but it's usually him at a table with 4 or 5 people who all disagree with him. It's like either 4 or 5 liberals and Jennings. Well, on a recent episode, I think not last night, but night before last, for some awesome reason, Ben Shapiro was there too. And so that was almost like too much. That was almost like, hey, now you go easy on him. You can't have 2 conservatives in there slapping down silly things these people are saying. But also joining the table, besides Abby Phillips, one of the liberals, and the liberal you're going to hear in this clip, she's from the Young Turks. Her name's Anna Kasparian. Now, I want you to, if that name doesn't ring a bell, I want you to try and remember this in the future, because she is one of the people I put a thumbtack in, is she's going to convert. And 5 to 10 years from now, she's going to be on Team Red. And she's going to be very good at it, too. She's going to be an asset. She's going to be, like Joe Rogan, his entire life up until about 4 years ago, up until horse paste, he was a Bernie bro. What an asset he was during the last election, right? But I love this because she is a woman that has been fed and bought into the same mainstream narrative most young people believe in and then eventually have to evolve out of. We're just getting to watch her evolve out of it in slow motion here. And she is promising, because when she realizes she is wrong, she often comes back and admits it. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought this would work. Or I'm sorry, I thought this is what I was taught, and it turned out that was wrong. Well, apparently, no one's taught her anything correct about the budget. Her scoffing at the idea of Social Security being a budget problem is hilarious. Because one of the great things about watching a Scott Jennings, and in this one you'll hear Ben Shapiro too, argument, is that how easy is it when you're right?
You should be. By the way, I just totally reject what you just said about how we're going bankrupt due to Social Security. Really, you don't think like the trillions of dollars we've spent on wars in the Middle East might have something to do with that?
It is not even
our national debt.
What we spend on Social
our
Security.
national debt shot up significantly after 9/11, after we started invading countries in the Middle East.
You should look at a chart.
Now we're at 30.
In 2008,
we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on Israel, on Ukraine. I mean, honestly, these foreign conflicts have a lot more to do with our national debt as opposed to us paying into Social Security.
You think Israel is a bigger portion of our budget than Social Security?
I think we
Medicaid?
spend way too much money on military aid for foreign countries.
You think
Absolutely.
Israel is more
Do
than
you
Social
think
Security?
that Social Security is more of an issue compared to how much money we just shell out for conflicts abroad?
As a matter of expenditures and math, yes.
Both entitlements and
Yeah, I love that. Do you really think it's a bigger problem? And Scott just says, yeah, as a matter of numbers, yes. That you don't even have to like raise your voice or be dynamic or wave your arms around. All you have to do is just say the facts here. That very end part. God, I find that so delicious.
money we just shell out for conflicts abroad.
As a matter of expenditures and math, yes.
Both entitlements and
as a matter of math, yes. So, in the last full fiscal year where we have the numbers back, we'll use 2023. The U.S. government spent about $100 billion, $99.8 billion in all the foreign aid to all the countries combined. So what are we spending on Social Security in this year's budget? $1.5 trillion. $1.5 trillion. We're spending 15 times as much every year on Social Security as we are foreign aid. And if you want to talk about all defense spending this year is going to be $859 billion. That's 12% of our budget. We spend more on Social Security than on defense. In fact, we spend almost twice as much on just Social Security as defense. And it's not just Social Security. Did you know we spend more on Medicare than we do on defense? It's $1.1 trillion. You know how much we spend on interest on our debt? We spend more on that than we do on defense as well. $952 billion. So right there, we have three things that we spend more on than defense. But if you want to roll in some of this other like mandatory spending, if you count in like Medicaid and unemployment insurance and all that other stuff, there's another $1.7 billion there. No, defense is just 12% of our spending. You need to calm down. Social Security is tanking us. And if you don't want to have this conversation now, fine. We can have it when the whole thing collapses. Just remember that was right this whole time. All right, that's going to do it for the James Show. Stick around. Mark Levin's coming up next. If you need more James Show action, check out the podcast. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP.